in the Avriv Army Base, who is a veteran of 10 years and never carried a gun but serves on the front line. I asked him, as we were approaching Holy Week, do the soldiers come to your services? He said no. Mostly they just want me to hear their confession because they think they're going to die. They are fighting for all of us, Presiding Officer. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
The next item of business is First Minister's questions, and I call Russell Findlay.
Thank you, President Officer. We are blessed to live in a country which provides its people with the safety net of social security. Any one of us or our loved ones might need a helping hand at some point in our lives. But as politicians, we have a duty to remind ourselves that it is paid for by taxpayers. Already, £1 of every £7 spent by the SNP government is spent on benefits. Does John Swinney think that is fair and affordable?
First Minister.
Yes, I do believe that it is fair and it is affordable. The Government successfully passed a budget through Parliament which had the support of members from different persuasions across the Parliament, which puts in place the resources to enable us to provide the type of support that we designed, which we all designed, in the social security legislation when that legislation was passed with unanimity, to ensure that people who required that support were treated with dignity, fairness and respect.
Russell Findlay.
So John Swinney has just said that his benefit spending is fair and affordable. It is neither. Hard-working Scots struggling with the cost of living are already forced to pay £1.8 billion more each year in SNP income tax. That's £1.8 billion more than if they did the same job for the same wage elsewhere in the United Kingdom. And that's the only reason that John Swinney can fund his benefit spending. And it's going to get worse. A new report from the Scottish Fiscal Commission says that 1 million Scots will be in receipt of benefits by the end of the decade. And at the same time, 1 million Scots will be paying income tax at the higher rate of 42 pence or more. So does John Swinney think that is fair and affordable?
First Minister.
I think the Government's approach in its budget and in its social security expenditure is fair and affordable. And I think what the Government is doing in relation to cost of living support, for example, has a whole variety of different elements about it. It results in people in Scotland paying lower council tax on average than in other parts of the United Kingdom. It results in the abolition of peak rail fares, which means that if you're a commuter between Edinburgh and Glasgow, your travel costs have been halved as a consequence of the Government. I hear a Conservative member talking about rural areas. The Government is piloting a £2 bus cap fare in the Highlands and Islands, and on my visit to Shetland, it's going down fantastically well as a measure to support the cost of living. And of course, if people live in Scotland, they will also have access to the social contract, which means they don't pay prescription charges, they don't pay for personal care, and also they don't pay for tuition fees, which this week, when the whole issue of student debt in the United Kingdom is becoming such a significant issue, and of course people don't pay tuition fees here in Scotland. So I think the Government has got the balance right between asking people to pay on higher incomes to pay slightly more in taxation, and of course the majority of taxpayers in Scotland pay less in taxation than if they lived in other parts of the United Kingdom, and they get access to the social contract which protects people from the rises in the cost of living.
Russell Findlay.
No one is asked to pay more tax. They are forced to pay more tax. This Government should get people off benefits and into work, because that's how you improve people's lives. But instead, the SNP hammers workers and businesses to pay for its expensive benefits. And it's going to get even more unfair and even more unaffordable, because an SNP government report wants more people to qualify for ADP, which already accounts for over half of all benefit spending in Scotland. Astonishingly, this report even says that those whose condition is not serious enough to qualify should be paid the benefit. Implementing this report would add another £1 billion to the SNP's already bloated benefits bill. Does John Swinney think that is fair and affordable?
First Minister.
Well, the government's not taken any decisions about these particular issues. But what this exchange highlights, once again, is that Russell Findlay has come into this Parliament to go after disabled people in our country and to undermine their quality of life.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm very pleased to put on the record that while Russell Findlay goes after the benefits of disabled people, my government will stand shoulder to shoulder with disabled people in our society and support them in their journey into employment and into activity. And I would simply point out to Russell Findlay, in relation to the contents of the government's budget yesterday, there is significant support for employability schemes to enable people to access the labour market. That's what I want people to do to help us to reduce child poverty that's already falling in our society. And of course, Scotland has got significantly lower unemployment under an SNP government than other parts of the United Kingdom. That's because this government delivers for the people of our country.
Russell Findlay.
Doing what he always does, resorting to nonsense smears, and that's because he's in a state of complete and utter denial.
Let's hear Mr Findlay.
This entire place is in a state of denial. SNP, Greens, Labour, Lib Dem, Reform, they all think that they can keep spending more money in benefits while expecting Scottish workers and businesses to keep paying for it. We can't. We just can't. The Scottish Conservatives know that we must reduce the benefits bill so that we can cut taxes to help people pay for their bills. Yet the SNP's deeply irresponsible budget does absolutely nothing whatsoever to address their benefits time bomb. So John Swinney should be honest for a change. Tell the public which taxes will he raise and which services will he cut to pay for his benefits bill.
First Minister.
If I needed any lessons on how to smear people, I would take them from Russell Findlay, who does it every single week in this chamber.
Thank you.
And as regards the budget yesterday, which of course Russell Findlay couldn't support, there was investment in there for employability schemes to get people off benefits and into employment, which is what he's asking for, but he couldn't even bring himself to vote for the budget yesterday. And Russell Findlay comes here with this empty rhetoric about delivering tax cuts without telling us what services are going to be cut as a consequence. And what I would simply say to Russell Findlay and the Conservatives, to reassure them about the situation we find ourselves in, is that when we as a government asked the credit rating agencies to assess Scotland's position, what did they tell us? They told us that we've got prudent fiscal management here in Scotland. That's what you get with an SNP government.
Question number 2, Anna Sarwar.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Families have been searching for answers for years to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital scandal. As everyone in this Parliament now knows, that hospital was opened before it was safe, and children and adults died as a result. John Swinney said the first time the government knew about problems at the hospital was March 2018. But even after that date, the government were denying the scale of the problem. Now, while there has been understandable focus on the lives lost, there were many others harmed. Prophylaxis, powerful anti-infection drugs, are typically used short-term, but for many children at the hospital, They were prescribed for prolonged periods as long as 9 months with side effects. Patients were told this was standard treatment, not connected to the hospital environment. Why were they lied to?
First Minister.
Mr Sarwar raises an important issue about the clinical care for children within the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, and this is one of the material issues that the inquiry that the Government has set up under the leadership of Lord Brodie is designed to provide answers to for families. Now, I am not a clinician. I accept that clinical judgments will be made in the care of individuals. But the establishment by this Government of the inquiry into the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital is designed to provide those answers to those families, the answers they deserve, and that is why the Government set up the inquiry. And I want to make sure that Lord Brodie has every opportunity to provide his answers on that question.
Anna Sarwar.
There has been a group of victims whose story has not been told enough